And now, we've got the fifth season, which is the first season completely out of the high school. Not really a big deal because real life situations have been a part of this show, and they were able to ease the high school enough in the fourth season that being without it is not a big deal at all. Like, for instance, after Pete left, I was sorry to see him go, but there really wasn't that big of a hole without him, to be honest. I felt a little bit more of a hole when Jonathan left, a little bit more on that later. But I am not particularly thrilled by this, because as with last season, I feel like they're kind of running out of new things to show, and this season was definitely way more negative than the previous one. Now granted, the situations that they're throwing out there were Clark and Lana's relationship devolves, and then Lex is now starting to look a little bit more like the bad guy, even though Lionel might be overturning the new leaf. It's really hard to say because, it feels like Lionel could be overturning a new leaf, but he doesn't really get anywhere. Lex could be doing a bad leaf. It doesn't go down too far. Like, what is it with these two? Yeah. And I'm just amazed that Lionel is still kicking around in here. It's crazy. Although we did get a death this season, although I'd kind of forgotten about that because, jor-el did mention that he was going to get rid of somebody, but we lasted enough episodes that I mostly forgot about it. Then we had that episode where Jonathan died, and I'm actually kicking myself that I didn't see that coming, because even though Man of Steel came after this show, okay, killing off Jonathan is actually a fairly common thing, it seems, because obviously he dies in Man of Steel, he dies here, and then he dies in Superman, the 1978 movie, of pretty much the exact same thing that got him here, except he was just running after Clark, if I recall correctly from that movie, and then he just keeled over. It wasn't because he was actually trying to fight somebody. Yeah, just... I feel like I should have seen that coming, Yeah. And it was a real bummer to lose him, because for the first time, I definitely felt like we had truly gotten a lot of inspirational messages from the character, because in the other examples, he dies fairly early in the movie, even though he does try to leave some things for Clark/Superman. Yeah, it's kind of tough to figure out what to call him, because as I said in my Season 4 review, every other incarnation, you really get the idea that he's Superman. Here, I can't picture him as Superman. To me, he's Clark, and that's how he refers to himself, yeah. Whew. Other things to mention. I gotta admit, Lois, she's definitely growing on me. I think I touched upon that in the Season 4 review, but yeah, I'm liking her even more now, which I find totally surprising, so it's going to be interesting to see if they end up deciding to focus more on her, and they've got a window to do that now since Clark and Lana's relationship has devolved, because it reached the point where Clark had to choose between telling Lana everything, like he did with Pete a few seasons back, and yeah, he does make the decision to, but it leads to, her death, and then we get Jonathan dying later because he resets the timeline, and I don't know how I feel about that. Time travel is not, I think, anything new when it comes to Marvel and DC Comics, but I don't know if I really buy it in this particular thing, I don't know. And I do think Jonathan's death was actually better than Lana's death, even though while I was watching that first half of the episode, I'm like, this is too good to be true. Something bad is going to happen, but I just have a tough time believing that jor-el would be like that, yeah. And then, of course, there's Lana and Lex's new relationship. Well, Season 4 had alluded to the fact for a long time that Lex might have had feelings for her, although her having feelings for him, it's a little bit of a stretch. Oh, I'm sure that she liked him as a friend, absolutely. They've had more than enough interaction for that, but liking him back? Hmm. You would have thought that, if Clark hadn't exactly treated her right, albeit Whitney kind of not abused her, just like took her for granted, and then Clark wasn't honest with her. Lex, I don't know. I mean, like, I'm glad that the show's actually developing it so we can see the end of where this goes, but I guess I just don't see it. And at the same time, if you count Pete having feelings for Chloe as a main male character being in love with somebody, Lex was the only person that hadn't really done that with anybody, because like that doctor chick, again, I don't really feel it, but whatever, that's in the past of the show. And he was a bit of a different person then, yeah. The new Kryptonian stuff, not bad, but I'm not particularly wowed by it. Although I am a little nervous about it every time it happens, because the unique thing about this show and Kryptonian stuff is that for the most part, we are being driven to like fear an idea, whereas not directly seeing the Kryptonian stuff like we do in a Superman the movie, Superman Returns, Man of Steel, because in all those things we actually get to see a little bit of Krypton and, touch upon a little bit of it, whereas for here, Jor-el doesn't have a voice, Zod doesn't have a voice, James Marsters' character Brainiac is actually a robot that kind of behaves like, the T-1000 in Terminator 2, but just so happens to prefer one form over the other, it seems. Actually, I don't know if he can really mimic anyone else completely, although he can make copies of himself, that's established, yeah. Yeah. So there's a bit of a different angle, which is good, as I've said, for superhero things, because if you're going to do the same mythology over and over and over again, it gets boring. I mean, for crying out loud, we've seen the Batman tone go from dark to comedic and back and forward a whole bunch of times. Yeah. You gotta mix it up somehow, and it is kind of creative. Yeah, I don't know really what else I can say about it, because as I mentioned in the Season 4 review, there's too much of this show for me to remember absolutely everything. I'm sure that you can guess most of what I was going to say anyway. I'm still enjoying it, but there's just not too much to talk about, because it keeps virtually all of its good prose, and then the bad stuff, it changes slightly, but it doesn't damper it overall that much. Yeah, I think I mentioned that there were a couple of things that I felt were about this season, such as it having like a wintry feel being negative, but again, you've got the real life circumstances in here. You're supposed to feel negative, and if we didn't have these real life circumstances, we can't learn from media, and most media has a message out there for us in some form or another. Yeah. I mean, like, it wouldn't be called entertainment if it was just stuff blowing up, even though that is what every action movie is, so what am I complaining about? Let's end this before I dig myself into any more of a hole, right? Later.